I got it. Hey Hodies, welcome to my channel. My name is hautemesstom and thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you are new here, my channel is all about loving my makeup collection as it currently is, while being considerate when I do decide to bring something into my collection. So if that kind of content sounds good to you, I would love to have you subscribe. I would really appreciate a like if you are interested in this topic or have thoughts and feelings. I would definitely love to hear people sound off in the comment section down below. And I'm also on patreon.com if you would like to support me there. Here's what I wanted to do today. I wanted to just do a little bit of a rant, and if you've clicked on this video, then you know what we're going to be talking about. It's not going to be the most perfect, well thought out, scripted things with evidence to support my claims, so let's not take it as that. Just like, it's like a little bit of food for thought for you and for me. And I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions about this down in the comments down below. And this isn't meant to like really rattle feathers, but for some reason I have this like instinct that it will. Let's talk about it. So recently, it's not a recent thing. It's kind of a thing that's always happened, but it's a thing that I think we should talk about more as both creators and consumers of makeup. And that is that makeup brands aren't our friends. I know that it feels that way sometimes and that we feel like we have like a loyalty to a brand. They don't have a loyalty to us. So let's just take some time to unpack that. First and foremost, these makeup companies want our money. And it doesn't matter how expensive the makeup is or what brand it is. These brands just want our money. And how are they going to do that? Well, any way they can. And I think right now we're kind of like heading toward this thing where all of the makeup is looking the same. And that's not to say like, you know, it's all been said and done before, right? Everything. This is not a unique thought that I'm having or speaking out to you. The color stories that these makeup brands are putting together in eyeshadow palettes, the types of products, the innovation isn't like happening every day, right? It's like, I feel like maybe once every couple of years, a brand will put out something that like sparks a fervor. So if you think about it, it's like Anastasia Beverly Hills put out Modern Renaissance, and then every brand had to release their own color story. Charlotte Tilbury put out the Flawless filter, and then a bunch of brands released like liquid illuminators. And that's like not even to say that Charlotte Tilbury's liquid illuminator was the first one on the market. It was just the one that kind of like took off, and then like other brands were trying to replicate and like still trying to replicate to this day. And it's just like one of those things where it's like a friendly reminder that like even if a brand releases something, it doesn't mean you need that version of it. Another brand is going to release it. I want to touch on like a couple of things here. So the first thing I think of is like people who collect all of the eyeshadow palettes from a brand, even if all of the eyeshadows don't speak to them. I understand like collecting is a thing, but when you think about, let's equate makeup to Pokemon cards, because it's just something that looks different. So if you're going to be a collector of Pokemon cards, you can look at them. When was the last time you saw someone play the game Pokemon with the card? Those are like kind of designed to be collector items. And I know that like makeup is kind of moving in this way where it's like trying to be something that they want you to collect, but ultimately makeup is designed to be used. And if you are buying eyeshadows from a brand just because you've decided that you're going to collect them all, but then you never touch the eyeshadows from the brand, why did you spend the money on it? So you could look at it. The other thing is, makeup does go bad, and I know that powder products take a lot longer to turn, but like one day it will happen. And if you have your Modern Renaissance that you bought whenever it first came out, even though it's like it's like an eyeshadow palette that you never intend on using, what was the point of even having it? People do it with like melt, like people who have all of the melt palettes. And this is all kind of like spurs from me watching a bunch of declutter videos. And it's like, I'm not speaking directly to anyone or about anyone. It's like common themes. It's happened in my declutters. It's happened in my makeup collections. I want to speak specifically and relate it back to me only because when you break the cycle of thinking that you owe these brands something just because you like them, that you need to buy something just because you like a brand or a person behind the brand, the relationship is still parasocial, honey. It still is. Whether or not you like the people who run that company or you think that company does really good things, that company only cares about you when you are buying from them. And what I think is kind of happening, and the reason I want to talk about this, is that I do not think that many makeup companies right now are doing enough to warrant us to spend our money. Doesn't mean that I'm not interested in things. Doesn't even mean that I'm not interested in things that may be perceived as boring. But what I am saying is that the wool has been pulled over many of our eyes because we're just like, oh yeah, like this is just what makeup is. But like, can't it be better? Or can't they be pushing the envelope a little bit more? Because right now, honestly, it's like a bunch of repackaging of the same things. Back to my little story. If you've been here for a while, you already know that my relationship with the brand Pat McGrath is like tepid right now. Because at one point, I was obsessed with the brand and I would release anything that the brand would put out. And I'm using this as an example. Perhaps you will see yourself in this example, but maybe with another brand. I just thought the brand was putting out the most innovative, artistry-driven makeup for consumers. And it was packaged in such a luxury way, and it just kind of was something that ticked all the boxes for me. But over time, the brand moved away from that initial vision, and the brand is welcome to do that, because I think what happened with the brand is the brand found where they can make more money, and they went to the money, which makes a lot of sense because they're a company who just wants to make money. They don't care what my personal perception of them is and how I feel like they have changed so much from the original vision of the company, and now it's like a completely different thing, and I don't really see it at all as the same company that it started out as. But I was following along for a long time, and I followed along longer than I should have. I mean, remember, Pat McGrath releases the Divine Rose 1 palette. It's okay, it's filling a gap. I wasn't like super interested in it. I bought it, but I was like, it's a mothership, I gotta buy it. I love the motherships. I love Pat McGrath. That's not a color story I'm like very into. The thing is, I like it now. My taste at the time, it's changed. Again, much like Pat McGrath is more than welcome to change the branding of however the company wants to look or how they want to make makeup or how they want to present makeup to us. I am also very much allowed to change my taste in makeup and my preferences in makeup as well. But at the time, I shouldn't have bought Divine Rose 1. It's not something that at the time that it was like a color story that I was very interested in. They released Divine Rose 2, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna buy that. It's Pat McGrath. It's revolutionary. It's visionary. Then she released Utopian Dreams, and then I snapped out of it, and I was like, wait a minute. I don't want that. That's very pretty. It's not for me. Because that's like not a thing that I want. I bought the foundation, the concealer. I bought anything that Pat McGrath would release. I was just like on it because I felt like, based on all of the stuff that I had bought up into that point, that we were like in this committed relationship together, like me and the brand Pat McGrath. And notice I'm saying the brand. I know that Pat McGrath is the head of her company, but like it is a company, and she's like not the only person who works there, and probably not the only person throwing ideas at that company. So I think that's like also important to keep in mind. So when I'm talking about Pat McGrath, I mean it as the brand, not the individual. And I think that's important context for us to remember. I can still like Pat McGrath and her artistry and find that her brand is like really boring and not for me. I bought it all. And I was like, Pat and I, we're in this together. This brand and I, we are in it. We're gonna swing back around. And as time progressed, turns out, no. Pat McGrath, the brand, took the company in a direction that's probably much more profitable to them. And they are well within their rights to do that. But what's really hard is we're living in we live in a society where we are interacting with brands as if they are like people and not as brands. And like I'm guilty of it too. And so are, I think, many of us who are in this. And it's really hard to break yourself away from it. But like once you do, like what happens now is that like Pat McGrath will release something and I just kind of side-eye it. Again, I can acknowledge that maybe that thing is pretty and maybe in some universe that I would want it and that a lot of other people will really get joy out of it, but not me. I see people online just like buying things from brands just because they feel like they owe it to the brand. But what has that brand done for you? Other than make a product, what have they done from you? They've just taken your money. And if you've tagged them, maybe they've reposted you. And what did that get you? I'm just saying, I think we need to have a much more realistic expectation of ourselves when these brands are doing things, because make them work for your money. Don't just buy something because it's X brand or Y brand. Don't just put your money where you just think like the brand is cool, but is it a product that you're going to use? Make them work harder. Don't buy things just because you feel like you need to, because it's this or that. Again, very guilty. And I'm not saying that we can't have preferences when it comes to brands, because I certainly do. And it's going to happen, right? Some brands are just going to like hit the mark for you more regularly than other brands. And then sometimes another brand will release something and you're like, that I want that now. And that's completely fine. I think a good example of this is like kind of looking at what's the popular color story right now. And it's like the Moonlit Seduction palette and the Natasha Denona My Dream palette collection. It's all kind of like looking the same. And Huda just released a palette that looks kind of similar to both of those. It's like, I'm just saying, I just think putting our money where we actually want it to go instead of just like blindly buying things and like just taking a minute to consider it, maybe the brands would start releasing more exciting things more regularly. And I think this is a more compounded problem than just feeling the parasocial relationship with brands or brand owners. For example, I like Holo Taco nail polish, but I don't exclusively buy my nail polish from Holo Taco because there are some gaps that they don't have, and I don't like their top coat. I don't like their base coat. I like their black nail polish, but I don't like their white nail polish. So like Christine, while I really love and appreciate Christine, I don't have to love everything that she puts out, but I like her. I still like her. And those two things can also be true. It's just like, I can be like interested in her brand, but like, I don't need to buy all of my nail polish from her brand. When I was watching people talk about stuff in this like series of declutters that I was watching recently, I was just like always shocked when people would open up. These are people who had really large collections, and I think that should be known. It's really hard to talk about makeup in a realistic way online. My makeup collection is like much larger than I need it to be, and that what I think a normal person should have for their makeup collection. But again, I'm not here to judge you on the size of your makeup collection. But what I'm saying is they would open these palettes and talk about how much they loved the color story, and it didn't even look like they had swatched any of the shades. And it's like, do you like it to look at, or do you like it to wear it? Because those are two different things as well. It's like, I bought this because I like this brand. I bought this because I like this brand. But it's like, sometimes we hear them talking about the color story, and they would be like unsure of what to say because they actually didn't really like the color story. And like, that's me reading into things. I'm not naming names. I'm not telling you who I was watching declutters and things from, but it's just like a very interesting thing to consider. And I think that we could also maybe tag on to here, while you might have a parasocial relationship with a creator, this is like brave and bold of me to say, but I'm also someone who consumes content. You don't have to buy things just because I like them. And you don't have to buy things just because a creator says that they like them. And I think that what social media and advertising and marketing, so like lumping this all together, has done a really good job of kind of like brainwashing us into not paying attention to like our wants when it comes to cosmetic items. Follow me here. Let's say I review a product and you're someone who watches me regularly, and we typically like a lot of the same things. Not always, but a lot of the same things. We have like the same preferences, the same tastes. If I'm reviewing something, part of my job, or part of your job as the consumer, or if I was watching someone else, part of my job as a consumer of their content is to listen and listen in between the lines a little bit. So it might be getting a glowing review, but they might be saying some things that I know that if I were talking about a product, that would be a negative perception for me. And I think like the easiest thing that I think people can really suss out is like when you have oily skin, when you have dry skin, the difference in preferences like that. But there are also other buzzwords that I look for when people are talking, when they're like really raving about something, that it's like, oh no, I wouldn't like that, even though they're talking about it as a positive. Or if they're reviewing something negatively, they might say something about a product that I'm like, oh no, wait, I actually don't mind that, or it's something that I like prefer in my cosmetic product. And I'm keeping it general. And it's like really hard as a consumer, because a consumer of content or even a consumer of product, because you have a relationship with me or the person that you're consuming content from, and you want to just trust me, which is like makes sense. I hope you're not taking this as like, don't believe anything that an influencer says, because that's not also what I'm saying. Their experience, their review is what it is, and I'm sure that's very true to them. But what I'm saying, like, their review can be helpful to you, whether it's negative, and it could be helpful to you to be like, that's a product that I would like. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like, don't follow the emotions of the review, even though that's like the fun part, like watching the person react and feel the way they feel. And if they feel very strongly, that's like the best part of the video. It's the best part of my videos, I think, whenever you get excited about touching a product, or you are like, I do not like this, but you're using it, and like you can see the distaste on their face and their disdain for the product on their face. It's to like kind of in your brain remove all of that and be like, what are they actually saying to me, and how would that work for me, and how do I think that would work for me? And I think cosmetic brands do the same thing. They are selling you a fantasy, and they're making you think that if you buy this thing, it's going to work out for you just the same way that it works out for them. And again, marketing and advertising is a little bit different than influencers, because at least with the influencer, it's like someone trying it, and you might see it get a negative review, or you might hear like a more neutral type of review. But in marketing, it's like, this is the most perfect thing that's ever gonna help you ever in your life, and it's gonna do it, and it's gonna make you feel this way. So I encourage you to face your relationships with brands and how you feel about the brand, and try to remove that feeling from your purchases from that brand. And I think this is especially relevant as we are heading into holiday season, when this is the time of the year where everyone ramps things up. We're gonna see a lot of releases. Everything's gonna be really, really flashy, and you're gonna really wanna feel like you need to buy something from a brand because you're like, it's limited edition. I could do a whole other video on like limited edition items. I think I've even done a video on limited edition items. I'm sure I could add to it at this point. Just remember, if it's not literally gonna serve you, if you remove all of the fancy, you remove the name from it, you remove the packaging from it, and you are just looking at the product and the claims of the product, do you really think it's gonna serve you? I'm not saying don't buy anything this holiday season. I'm just saying, be critical as you are like navigating the holiday season. I'm not a perfect person. I get swept up in marketing all the time. I bought and reviewed the Ambient Glow foundation from Hourglass because what? I got caught up in the marketing, got caught up in the brand. And you know what that got me? An expensive, not so great foundation. Take that for what it is. Let me know some of the patterns you see in the beauty community that you might think encourage a lot of spending, and how we can unpack that in the comments down below. I'd be very curious to hear what you guys have to say, and maybe you might spark another idea for another ranty video. But I think that's where it is. I think that's where we end it. I don't know how eloquent I was because we were coming in hot, coming in spicy. If you are new here and you enjoyed today's video, thank you so much for watching. I would love to have you subscribe. Ranting is not what I normally do. Normally I'm using my makeup on camera, chatting about it, maybe reviewing a new item here or there. So I'd love to have you stick around for that. Make sure you like this video before you leave it. And again, I'm on Patreon if you would like to support me there. Thank you to all of my lovely patrons who support this channel. And that's it. Remember to follow your haute and you will find me. Thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you in my next one. Bye-bye. Ceres.